Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today and for taking the time out of your busy schedule, we know, to learn more about the upcoming changes to the CFI post-award online environment. So my name is Christine Charbonneau, and I'm the Director of Finance at the CFI. I have two of my colleagues who are joining me today, Stéphane Leroux, Senior Financial Monitoring Officer, and Mireille Labrie, Programs Officer. So as you know, the CFI will be introducing very shortly in December new post-award functionalities in its CFI awards management system, which we will refer here today as CAMS. These will replace the legacy system that you have been using for many years now. Some of you may already be familiar with CAMS, as the pre-award functionalities are already in CAMS, such as the preparation of proposals, submission of proposals, as well as project progress reports. And essentially, this will be the final step in the rollout of this new system, and we will be bringing on board all post-award functionalities, so anything that relates to award finalization, amendment requests, financial reports, and the IOF annual report, as well as the viewing of the institution's IOF allocation. In this webinar, we will be providing you with important information related to the new post-award modules and functionalities in CAMS, and we'll also discuss the main changes between this system and the legacy system. I should note that this presentation is intended for institutional users and not for project leaders, since the researcher portal will not be presented here today. A recording of the presentation will be made available on our website, so on the CFI online webpage in late November for those that would like to go back to it, or possibly for the benefit of your colleagues that may not have been able to attend today. So we will do our best to have this up by the end of the week. So today we'll be presenting the information in 5 chapters. First, we'll touch briefly on the rationale behind the transition to a new system. We'll then provide an overview of the new features in CAMS, as well as some of the changes that have been made to the online forms. And we will end with a few words on the upcoming transition and what you need to do to ensure this goes smoothly. We certainly encourage you to ask questions as we go along using the questions and answers feature provided to the right of your screen. Depending on the number of questions, we may pause at certain times to answer some of them. So it's possible that after Chapter 2, we'll do a small pause and take some questions. There will also be a period at the end for questions, and we may answer some of them in writing as well. So since we have many participants today, if ever we are not able to answer your questions within the time allotted for this webinar, or if you have questions that come up following the webinar, certainly feel free to send us an email after the session and we'll get back to you. We will provide our contact information on the last slide. So first, let's touch briefly on the rationale behind the transition to a new system. I'm sure some of you might be wondering why we need to move away from a system that has been working, some of you would say, I think, fairly well to this date. The first obvious reason why we have been implementing a new system is that the technology behind our legacy system was becoming obsolete. It was becoming increasingly difficult to support, and performance was becoming an issue. In addition, our legacy system had many limitations and was not allowing us to implement the additional features that we wanted to have. It was really built over time as the CFI evolved, and how the various modules as well, how they were designed and interacted with each other was certainly not optimal. So we knew that the time had come to move to a better and more performing system, one that could allow us to pursue the improvements that we wanted to make. The post-award module that we will deploy in December will include a number of new or improved features and functionalities that will better assist institutions in managing their portfolio of CFI-funded projects. With this new system, we will also be able to expand on the functionalities over time, which is something that was really important to us as well. So essentially, the vision that we had for this system is that it would not only be used to fill out forms such as financial reports and amendment requests, but also provide you with the tools and the information that you need to help you in your daily management of CFI-funded projects. So at the CFI, I think we're quite excited about this new system, and we certainly hope that you will be as well once you have had the chance to use it. I must say that many of the enhancements are the result of consultations with institutional users, and we like to thank those who have participated in these consultations. Certainly, your ideas and suggestions have been most helpful to us. Overall, we hope that this new system will meet your expectations and that you will continue to work with us to further develop it over the coming years. So now that you have a better idea of why we are implementing this new system, let's move along to the interesting part of this presentation, the new features in CAMS. There are many topics that we will cover in this section, so we thought we'd list them for you here. We will first be discussing the improved navigation in CAMS, then the enhanced search features and how we have improved the user access. We will then present the new overview functionalities that will be available to you, the online certification for financial reports, and finally, present some of the new information that will be made available to you. So we will now be going into more details for each one of these topics. The first thing that you will likely notice when you log into CAMS will be the improved navigation. On your screen is a snapshot of the institutional dashboard, which is really the landing page for all institutional users. So this is what you will be seeing when you log into CAMS. So in this page, you can see that there is a navigation menu on the left-hand side, so where the blue arrow has just appeared. With this menu, you can navigate easily from one module to the next. New as well is the pre-award and post-award modules. These two modules can now be found in one portal, which is an improvement from our legacy system. As seen on the screen, you have the proposal information under the infrastructure project heading, then decisions information all the way to project progress report. So there is no need to access different modules via different access points, as may have been the case for you in our legacy system. Essentially, you can go to one place and do all your work. The navigation is also very intuitive and user-friendly, although I'm sure this will take you a bit of time to get used to it at first, as well as the interfaces. So just give yourself a bit of time to browse around and familiarize yourself when you access the new system. I should also note that you may not see all of the modules when you access CAMS that you have here on your slide today. You will only see the modules for which your institution has given you access. But for purposes of this webinar, we have included the full spectrum. We have also improved the search features to improve functionality. Each search function has been customized based on the information found in that module. So we have an example here for you today. It's the search function for the financial report module. You can see that you can search by project number, by project leader name, or by financial report status or type. The fields that allow you to search by statuses or type can be quite useful to you, as they allow you to generate lists of projects depending on their status. For example, you can generate a list of all reports that are in progress or reports where issues are pending. So please take the time to explore this feature when you first access CAMS. This feature is also great to create an action list that you may want to work on. In addition to the search features, there may also be useful links that are provided. In the case of the financial report modules, there are two such links, the View Reports to be Submitted link and the View All Projects link. And I will be presenting those in the next two slides. So here's an example of what you will obtain when you click on the View Reports to be Submitted link. Essentially, you will obtain a list of all projects that still need to submit a financial report and the date of the next report due. You can sort the list by date so that you know what's coming up next and what you might want to start working on. Most modules also have the ability to export the search data to Excel. So you can see an example of this here. This is certainly great for internal follow-up or manipulation of the data. And although you have an example here for the financial report module, I should note that there's similar features as well in other modules. And here's an example of what you will obtain when you click on the View All Projects link. So this is the second link that you had in your financial report module. You will obtain a list of all your projects, the date of the last financial report created and its status, as well as other useful information such as the latest approved end date for each project and the reporting frequency for each project. So we know based on the consultations that we have done earlier this year that this is information that you wanted to have and that would be useful to you, so we have included it in this module. So please give those links a try when you are in this module, as you will see that they are quite useful. The third feature that we wanted to highlight are the enhancements made for user access. The legacy system that you are currently using has very limited functionalities with respect to user access. What a user can see and do for the various modules is predetermined and does not lend itself well to institutions who might want to work in a different way. This limitation has led to the sharing of usernames and passwords, which is certainly not desirable. So what's new with user access in CAMS? We know that each one of you works slightly differently as an institution. So with the new system, institutions can customize the access of each institutional user to meet the needs of the institution. There is no reason anymore to share usernames and passwords. User access in CAMS needs to be dealt with in two instances. So you really have two different groups of people, and it works slightly differently for each one of them. So first you have the access privileges for the institutional administrators. These people exclude the project leaders, and the access can be customized for each one of these individuals. Second, there are the access privileges for project leaders, and the access can be customized for the group of individuals, the group of project leaders. So you cannot assign different privileges to one researcher versus another, but you can determine which privileges you'd like to give for the post-award modules to all of your project leaders. So the fact that we are dealing with two different groups of users and that user access works differently in each instance is an important concept to understand. We also encourage institutions to consider whether users outside the research and finance offices should have access to any of the modules to assist them in their daily activities. So I'm thinking here maybe of your Treasury department, who might find some of the payment information useful, or even maybe your procurement department. So these are the type of things that you should probably be considering. So although the access is a bit more complicated to set up at first, and you will probably have noticed this with the forms that you needed to submit to us in October, the good side is that the system will be able to adapt to your own practices and complement your institution's internal control framework, including the appropriate segregation of duties. So we do hope that you will welcome the enhancements that have been made to user access in CAMS. CAMS will also have new overview functionalities that will allow you to view important information at either the institutional level or at the more detailed project level, all in one screen and without having to navigate to different modules. In essence, it is a snapshot of the important elements for your institution or for a given project. It's allowing you to see the forest or the big picture instead of only focusing on the trees or the details. So on your screen right now, you have an example of what the institutional level overview will probably look like. And I say it's an example because it is still in final stages of development and the actual product might look slightly differently, but this is really just to give you an idea of the type of information that will be included. A word of caution here is that these new functionalities are very much still in their early stages of development, as we are experimenting with what this could look like and what would be most useful for users. We are hoping that this will be available to you in December, but it is possible that you will only have this in the early part of 2015, since, as I've mentioned, we are still in final stages of development. If this slight delay does happen, do not worry, as you will have the information already in the detail screen in December. So the overview may not be there, but the information will be available in other modules. When it is made available, you will see that there will be limited information that will be included at first. We hope that you will provide us with your input on the type of information that would be helpful to you, as our goal is to expand and improve these functionalities over time. One of the things that we are planning to incorporate later in 2015, for example, based on the feedback received from institutions, is a repository of institutional reports. These would essentially be reports that can be generated to fulfill common information needs at your institutions. So for example, one of the common requests or useful information that we often provide is a list of all infrastructure items reported in final financial reports to the CFI to assist, for example, the institution in building an inventory of CFI-funded infrastructure. So as this is a common need, we could make this type of report available to institutions. So we know that we're collecting a lot of data at the CFI, and we need to ensure that institutions also benefit from this and that you can access the data that would be helpful to you in managing your CFI-funded projects. And here is what the project level overview will look like. Again, we would very much appreciate your input once you have had the chance to familiarize yourself with it. Note that the project overview functionalities will only be available to institutional administrators at first and not to project leaders. We are hoping to have this available for project leaders later in 2015. You'll probably be happy to hear that the CFI will no longer require hard copies of final financial reports and IOF annual reports with signatures. We are instead introducing an online certification for these reports. Only the users that have been assigned submission privileges by the institution will be able to submit these reports online. So it's important that you assign these privileges carefully to the people at your institution. We hope that this will help reduce the administrative burden while still maintaining an appropriate level of control over these submissions. Based on the feedback received during user consultations, we are making a variety of new information available to institutions. For example, information on funding decisions will now be available in CAMS, and I will show you what this will look like in just a few minutes. You will also have access to award agreements, including revised award agreements and award finalization forms in PDF format. You will be able to access these documents via the award finalization module or via the project overview screen. As previously mentioned, the financial report module will include information on the financial reporting frequency, the latest approved end date for each project, and the date of next financial report due. Several of you perform oversight activities over project completion, so this information will likely be useful to you. As well, this will help you plan your work related to the preparation of financial reports. Last but not least, you will be able to view payment information related to a project or payment information for a defined period of time for all of your projects. You will be able to view payments that have occurred in the past, and this since the inception of the CFI, as well as the ability to view all future payments that have currently been scheduled by the CFI. So essentially, you will be able to define the search parameters and the system will provide the information accordingly. We will show you an example of this as well in just a few minutes. So as previously mentioned, funding decisions will now be available in CAMS for the institutional administrators with proper privileges. They will be displayed in their own section and the information will be searchable. You have an example of this information now on your screen. You can also click View All Decisions to see all decision information related to your institution. Funding decisions information will also be made available to each project leader in a section of their dashboard. The decision will appear in CAMS simultaneously on the institutional and researcher dashboard. You have an example of the information that will be available to them on your screen right now. It's important to note that the process for announcing the funding decisions will not change. Decisions will still be communicated to institutions shortly following the Board of Directors decision by email, as is the case now. It is expected that decisions will appear in CAMS a few hours to a few days after the decision email has been sent. It is thus important that institutions take this into consideration when establishing a communication strategy with project leaders. The process and location for accessing the review material for their part remains unchanged. So this slide is simply to show you a few examples of the type of information that you might obtain if you are searching for payment information. There are two levels of payment information, the detailed level, which is at the transaction level, or the summary level, which includes summary information by project. So at the detailed transaction level, you have an example of what would be provided if you are searching for payment information for a defined period of time. So in this case, I've executed a search from July 1st to July 30th, and the system displays the details of all payments made during the month of June. The second screenshot provides you with an example of the summary level information that would be provided for a given project. If you want, you can also click on the project number and the system will provide the payment transaction details for the project. Note that we will continue for now to send the payment notification emails as we have been doing in the past, even though the information will now be readily available in this module. So we know based on the consultations that these emails were important and that you still wanted to receive them. So for now, we will maintain that practice. So overall, the payment module is a powerful tool that can fulfill many different information needs related to payment. So I would certainly encourage you to take a few minutes to experiment with this module when you first log into the system. So this completes our discussion of the new features in CAMS. And I will now leave my colleague Stéphane take you through the next two chapters.
Okay, so we would now like to take a few minutes to discuss the changes to the online forms. So I guess right about now, I'm sure you must be thinking, great. In addition to learning a new system, I also need to deal with changes to online forms. Well, the good news is that there are very few changes being made to the information that needs to be entered in the posted word forms. This is true for all forms, either it being the amendment, the financial report, interim or final, or the IOF annual report. So the most noticeable changes for you will likely be the different interfaces for data entry and also the layout of the printed forms. So the information that needs to be entered is not changing for the most part, but how you go about entering this information will be different. This will take some getting used to on your part, but the modules and the forms are very intuitive, so hopefully this will not be a problem. As well, the PDF forms have been redesigned, therefore the layout of these forms is different and some of the content has been reformulated or the information is displayed in a different way or in a different section. Again, No changes in the information entered, but there are some shifts in how and where the information is presented in the final output. So you have here an example of the PDF form for financial report in our legacy system at the left and in CAMS at the right. So you will notice that for the most part, it's the same information, but simply packaged differently. So a few minor changes to keep in mind. So the first one, as you most likely know by now, the itemized list and summary of secured contribution form is being discontinued. The last day for submission to the CFI of any of these forms in progress has now passed. In fact, it was November 14th. In CAMS, an update to the budget of a project will be done using the amendment module, whether it be prior to the finalization of the award agreements or afterwards. Here's another minor change. So the item location is new information that will now be entered. It will now need to be entered into the amendment and the final financial report. So this was not required in the legacy system. So this information will be useful to the CFI and also used by provincial funders as the location of the infrastructure impacts the source of funding in some provinces. All proposals created in CAMS already contain this information as it is entered at the time of application. Please plan a bit more time for older ongoing projects created in the legacy system as this information was not required and will now need to be added in the online forms completed for these projects. So also for final financial reports, you will now have the ability to include attachments. These were often sent via email to the CFI in the past, so this will result in a more efficient process and the information will be available afterwards for easy reference in the system. There are also a few other minor changes in financial reports, such as the eligible cost by institution for a multi-institutional project that will no longer be required. And also as you go about describing the changes to the infrastructure. So this will now be in one section at the end of the report instead of provided at an item level. So again, these are only minor changes. So before we finish the presentation, we wanted to talk to you briefly about the upcoming deployment to ensure a smooth transition to CAMS in December. So you've most likely seen this diagram before. It highlights the key dates and activities related to the transitions to CAMS. It's important to note that there will be no online access from December 6th to the 14th. It's a long period and we apologize for this, but it is necessary as the amount of work that is involved is quite significant. So the outage applies to all pre and post award functionalities. For example, those who might be completing proposals for the John R. Evans Fund or the College Industry Innovation Fund might be impacted by this outage. So are those who use the system for completing amendments and financial reports. So please carefully plan for this system outage and inform all those that might be impacted. The system is scheduled to be back online on Monday, December 15th. Once the system is back online, we will use the information that you have provided in the access form that was sent to us in October and enable the new access privileges for existing CAMS accounts. So the new modules will be accessible to these users early in that week. At the same time, the CFI will create the new CAMS account and send an email to the new users to activate their accounts. So please ask users to check their spam folder if the email is not in their inbox. If for any reason following this webinar you realize that the information provided to us in the access form in October should be modified, please send us an updated form within the next few days and we'll try to incorporate these changes in time for the transition. Otherwise, the changes will be made at a later date following the transition. Getting ready for the transition. So with a system implementation of this magnitude, data migration from the legacy system into the new system is always a challenge. For the forms that are in progress, so the forms that you have started to enter information, but that you have not yet submitted to the CFI, we expect that for the most part, the information that you have entered in the legacy system will transfer to the new environment. There are a few things to keep in mind, however, for these forms once the information has been migrated to CAMS. So first, the item location will need to be entered for amendments in final financial reports, given this is a new field in CAMS. Second, for final financial reports, you may need to adjust the CFI actual contribution that has been migrated from the legacy system. It's possible the migration may not have picked up certain amounts. And also, any description of infrastructure changes entered in the legacy system will be lost. And so you will need to re-enter this information in a global section. This is due to the fact that the information is not presented on an item basis anymore. So we'd like to encourage you to submit as many forms in progress as possible before the deployment to minimize the risk associated with the migration of data. For the forms that are still in progress come December 6th, please review all data prior to submission to the CFI to ensure that the migration has not introduced any error. You will also need to inform project leaders of the transition. The involvement of project leaders in post-award activities and their level of interaction with CAMS will vary from one institution to another and will depend on the system access privileges granted by your institution. Given this, the CFI will not be issuing a communication to project leaders. We will leave it up to you to communicate with them. This way you can tailor your communication to what's relevant to your project leaders and the access privileges that you have granted them. So note that most project leaders are already familiar with CAMS since they have already completed either proposal or a project progress report using the system. So they are already familiar with the interfaces and the navigation. For project leaders, what this deployment will bring is the ability to view additional information and possibly prepare amendment requests within CAMS instead of using our legacy system. So it's best that you keep this communication simple with the project leaders. Some of the elements that you may want to communicate are the fact that the CFI is introducing new post-award modules to its online system, as most project leaders are likely not aware of this. It will be important also to indicate what will change for project leaders. For example, new information that they may now see in their portal come December 15th based on the access privileges that you have granted them. So please refer to the project leader access form that you have completed and returned to us in October for details on the access privileges granted. You will also want to let them know about the system outage period, so from December 6th to the 14th, as this might impact project leaders who may be preparing amendments in the legacy system, project progress reports, and hopefully there are only a few left at this time of the year, or those who may be preparing a proposal, particularly for the John R. Evan funds and for the College Industry Innovation Fund. You may also want to provide the link to the document Getting Started with CAMS, an overview document for researchers posted on the CFI online webpage. This document provides the needed information for using CAMS. It will be updated soon to include post-award information. So I would suggest that you wait until the updated version is posted before sending it to your project leaders. With the changes in CAMS, you may also want to reflect on your business processes and practices and see if any changes should be made to increase efficiency and effectiveness. And so please do not worry that you will need to make changes to your processes and practices in order to use CAMS. You will be able to work exactly the same way as you are currently when CAMS come on board, assuming this is what you'd like to do. But some of the changes or new information in CAMS could allow you to work differently, and you may want to consider these opportunities. For example, instead of sending the payments notification emails received from the CFI to your Treasury Board so that it knows how to account for the incoming funds, maybe you can give them access to view this payment information directly in the system. And also, if your procurement department is responsible for approving expenditures and making sure they are in line with the CFI approved budgets, It's important that this department be able to access the latest budget at all times as it's the point of reference. So given the procurement department the read-only access to the award finalization and amendment modules, or alternatively to projects overview screen, would allow this department to have access to the latest budgets approved by the CFI. So these are only a few examples, but as you get familiar with the new system, we encourage you to think about how you can make processes and practices more effective and efficient. Help us improve CAMS. So although we've tested the system extensively, we expect there will still be a few number of unresolved issues when the deployment occurs in the months that follows. This is expected with any system implementation of such magnitude. So please let us know if you find something that is not working properly. Issues should be reported to the CFI Help Desk at help@innovation.ca. Your screen shows you where this can be done on the CFI online page of innovation.ca. Following the deployment, we will post a summary of unresolved issues on our CFI online page, along with an expected timeframe for resolution. You will be able to consult this summary at any time. So over the short term, we aim to ensure that you experience a smooth and seamless transition from our legacy system to CAMS, and we hope that you will be patient and help us during this transition. We believe that there are many benefits with the new modules, but there will likely also be some short-term pains that we will need to go through. And this is true for you as well as for us, because this is also a new system for us. Along the long term, we aim to continually improve CAMS to better suit your needs. So please send us your ideas and feedback on how this system can better assist you in your management of CFI funded projects. And you can do so by sending us an email at feedback@innovation.ca. So this completes our presentation, and we hope that it has provided you with some useful information on the important changes that are coming up for the CFI post-award online environment. If you do have any questions about the CAMS, feel free to contact us at the following address, and we would be happy to answer your questions promptly. So we'd like to thank you today for taking the time to go through the changes with us,